Will smoking in the metro no longer lead to jail now? Will the rules really change after the Jan Vishwas bill? It is night. People are hurrying down the stairs of a metro station. Someone wants to get home. Someone wants to catch the last train. And in the middle of this crowd, one man takes a cigarette out of his pocket. There is that carefree look on his face that people often have just before making a small mistake. But the real suspense begins here. Because the question is not only that he smoked, the question is whether such a mistake will no longer lead to jail now. Has the law really changed? And if it has changed, does that mean smoking in public places will now become easier? This is exactly the point where the headline and the law collide with each other. Over the last few days, the name Jan Vishwas bill has suddenly become part of common conversation. And the reason is clear too. Parliament has passed the Jan Vishwas Amendment of Provisions Bill 2026, and the government is presenting it as a reform that will stop small procedural offences from turning into criminal cases. According to PRS and PIB, this bill changes 784 provisions in 79 central acts, out of which 717 provisions have been decriminalized, while 67 provisions have been changed to improve ease of living. In other words, the government's intention is not only to change punishment, but to change the entire tone of enforcement. But the most important thing here is that it is very easy to understand this whole issue without nuance. Many people may read the headline and assume that now smoking in the metro or in public places will practically become allowed. But the truth is quite different from that. India's main anti-tobacco law on public smoking, that is, COTPA, still remains in force. Under it, smoking in a public place continues to be a punishable offense, and there is also a provision for a fine. That means smoking has not become legal. Only in some specific provisions, criminal prosecution is being replaced with civil penalty or administrative action. This difference is not small, it is very big. This is the legal detail that is the most important part of this entire story. According to PIB's background note, under the Jan Vishwas Bill 2026, that provision in the Calcutta Metro Railway Act 1985 has been changed, under which smoking in a metro carriage or underground station could earlier lead to criminal prosecution. Now it is being changed into a civil penalty of 2000. Pay attention here. Nowhere is it being said that smoking is allowed. It is only being said that this specific metro-related offense will now be handled through a civil penalty instead of a criminal case, so that a relatively minor lapse does not lead to criminal prosecution. So if you want to remember just one line from this video, it should be this. There is a huge difference between jail being removed and freedom being given. The purpose of the Jan Vishwas bill is not that people should break rules and the system should stay silent. The purpose is that for small, first-time or less serious offences, the criminal justice system should not be activated unnecessarily. The government has described this bill as a compliance-based framework, where warning, advisory notice, civil penalty and adjudication will come first, and criminal prosecution will remain the last weapon. In fact, this reform has come out of that long debate in which it was repeatedly said that India still has many old laws that turn even small procedural mistakes into criminal offences. A mistake in filling a form, a filing delay, a documentation lapse, or some technical violation. All of these having a criminal clause meant that both ordinary people and small businesses feared the law and felt its burden more than its fairness. According to official PIB documents, the Jan Vishwas reform is an attempt to change that old mindset. And this is the second major phase after the earlier Jan Vishwas Act of 2023. The 2023 Jan Vishwas Act was also built on this same philosophy. That act had decriminalized 183 provisions across 42 central acts. The new bill of 2026 takes that direction even further. So this is not some suddenly invented political slogan, but a continuing legislative project. The groundwork was laid in the first phase, and now, in the second phase, its scope has been made much wider. That is why the version introduced in 2025 was later expanded into the 2026 version, and after the recommendations of the Select Committee, its scope reached 79 acts. Now let us return to the headline from which the curiosity began. Now smoking in the metro will not lead to jail. This line is technically a half-truth, because in one specific metro-related provision, criminal prosecution has been removed and replaced with civil penalty, but the ban on smoking has not ended. If a viewer sees only the headline and thinks that now smoking in the metro is allowed, then that would be a misunderstanding of the law. The law is saying that the offense is still an offense, only its legal treatment is being made more proportionate. This reform gives relief from a criminal record, not permission. And this distinction is very important even from the point of view of public health. According to documents of India's National Tobacco Control Program and the Tobacco Control Report, tobacco use in the country is linked to around 13 lakh deaths every year. Government health sources also say that the restriction on smoking in public places exists so that non-smokers can be protected from second-hand smoke. So the law was not made only to punish the smoker, but to protect the health rights of other citizens. That is why it would also be wrong to see decriminalization as dilution of public health. The logic behind the law is that not every wrong act has the same seriousness. A violent crime, fraud, repeat violation, or an activity that causes major harm to public safety belongs to a different category. But treating a small, first-time, low-harm procedural or conduct-related mistake at the same criminal level also makes the system heavy and becomes disproportionate for the citizen. The Jan Vishwas bill is trying to reduce this very disproportion. That is why warning before punishment and proportionate penalties have been kept as core principles of this reform in official documents. There is another major angle to this reform. India's court burden, the pressure of pending cases on the judiciary, has been a subject of discussion for a long time. According to the parliamentary reply of the Department of Justice and NJDG data, crores of cases are pending in the country's courts, and pendency in the district judiciary alone has gone above the range of 5 crore. Not every pending case is a minor offense, but the government's argument is that taking minor matters to criminal courts wastes the system's energy in the wrong place. The Jan Vishwas framework is also part of a larger administrative strategy to reduce this burden. The government has also indicated to departments that where old criminal clauses have now been rationalized or decriminalized, there is no point in continuing unnecessary prosecution. PIB material clearly says that, with the help of dedicated adjudicating officers, appellate authorities, and administrative mechanisms, matters can be handled more quickly and practically. This means that in future, the path of such cases may move away from courts and toward departmental or quasi-administrative resolution. This can reduce time, legal cost, and harassment for the common person. It is also important to note that this bill is not limited only to one symbolically catchy issue like metro smoking. It includes changes in some provisions of the Railways Act, ease of living reforms under the Motor Vehicles Act, the NDMC Act, the Clinical Establishments Act, legal metrology, and many business-related laws. For example, the official note says that a 30-day grace period for an expired driving license has been added as an ease of living measure, and some railway violations have been converted into civil penalties. In other words, the government wants to send the message that the regulatory system should not be fear-based, but should give a chance for correction. But there is another fear factor here too, which is important to understand. Whenever the government reduces jail for small offenses, one section of society immediately fears that this may increase lawlessness. People ask, if punishment becomes softer, will people still take rules seriously? This question is genuine. But the documents of the Jan Vishwas bill say that action has not been removed for serious violations. Rather, a graded response has been created for minor and procedural lapses. That means the system can still remain strict for repeat violations, serious harm fraud, or deliberate non-compliance. That is why the correct way to understand this bill is not that the government has become soft, but that the government is making the punishment architecture tiered earlier. Every mistake would get the same criminal color. Now a structure is being created where warning, notice, civil penalty, adjudication, and only then harsher action will follow. This approach is seen in many modern regulatory systems across the world, where encouraging compliance is the primary goal, and criminalization is reserved for truly serious misconduct. Jan Vishwas appears to be becoming India's version of that direction. Even so, for the common citizen, the practical takeaway is very simple. Lighting a cigarette in the metro, at the station, in underground premises, or in a public place is not safe, not smart, and not legally risk-free either. Public smoking is still prohibited. The only difference is that in some specific contexts, instead of a criminal case, you may face a civil penalty or summary action. But the possibility of penalty, embarrassment, enforcement, and repeat violation still remains. So the biggest mistake would be to treat the headline like a loophole. There is also a social angle to this story. In India, people often say, it's the first time, let it go, or why make a case out of such a small thing? On the other hand, a person smoking in a public place often forgets that there may be a child nearby, an asthma patient nearby, an elderly person nearby, or simply a commuter who just wants clean air. The job of the law is not only to define the relationship between the smoker and the state, but also to protect the rights of others in a shared public space. That is why it would be wrong to see decriminalization as leniency. It is actually an attempt to regulate public behavior in a civil way while making enforcement proportionate. If understood in broader policy language, the Jan Vishwas bill is also a kind of governance message. It says that the relationship between the state and the citizen should not be based only on suspicion. Looking at every procedural lapse through the lens of criminality, especially when there is no mala fide intent in it, can become the sign of an over-governed society. The philosophy of the bill is to promote trust-based governance, ease of doing business, and ease of living. That is why it is being called not just a legal reform, but also a governance reform. Now, one important legal caution must also be added. In this entire issue, different laws can operate in parallel. The metro-specific provision, the general public smoking law, local enforcement rules, station regulations, and state-level implementation. All of these shape the practical ground reality. So no single viral line can explain the entire legal landscape. The officially verified point is this. In the Jan Vishwas Bill, 2026, the smoking-related criminal prosecution under the Calcutta Metro Railway Act is being converted into a civil penalty as a proposal or legislative change, while public smoking remains an offense under COTPA. This precise framing is the most accurate one, and perhaps this is the most interesting layer in the whole story. We often understand law only in the language of punishment. Is there jail or not? Is there a fine or not? But the real question is what kind of citizen the state wants to create. A citizen compliant out of fear or a citizen compliant out of understanding? The answer of the Jan Vishwas bill, at least on paper, is that for small mistakes, the criminal shadow should be removed, but the rule of law should remain in place. This balancing act is not easy, and its success will depend on implementation, not only on the passing of the bill. So the next time you see a headline saying, "Now smoking in the metro will not lead to jail," read it like this. Yes, the language of the law has become softer in some places. No, smoking has not become legal. Yes, criminal prosecution may be replaced with civil penalty. No, public health rules have not ended. And most importantly, this reform is an attempt to turn small mistakes into opportunities for correction, not a free pass to break rules. That is the difference the headline does not tell you.
This video has
but the law
taught you
does.
something new. Or if you feel this information should reach more people, don't forget to like and share the video. Your small share can become valuable and useful information for someone else. If you have any questions related to this topic, or if you would like to share your opinion with us, be sure to write in the comment box. We read every question and suggestion from you, because your feedback inspires us to create better content. And if you want to keep receiving such interesting and reliable information about business, the economy, and the world in the future, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel GRT Business and also press the bell icon so that you get notifications of every new video directly. At GRT Business, we always strive to provide you with accurate, balanced, and reliable information. Our news and analysis are prepared based on information obtained from various news agencies, public sources, and public opinion. We make every effort to verify and validate each fact as much as possible. But in case of any possible error or dispute, the responsibility lies with the respective sources. Our only aim is to present you with a correct and trustworthy perspective so that you can understand any topic better.